Hello and welcome to Drunk on Tea. I recently started a new series where I paint Chaos Daemons in alternative paint schemes to add some variation to the battlefields of Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar. Demons can come in a variety of different looks, not just the colours of the Chaos gods they follow. There are decaying, ghastly monstrosities, water and ice demons, demons made from rock, and even demons that don't have any physical form at all. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint a fire demon by painting up a Khorne bloodletter, but any Chaos demon can be painted in this style. The first thing I've done is prime the mini white. This is so I have a bright base to work from and will really make the fire look like it's glowing. First, with Flash Gits Yellow, I'm applying a heavy dry brush all over the model. I'm starting off with a large brush to cover as much of the model as quickly as possible, but will come in afterwards with a smaller dry brush to catch any parts that the large brush couldn't reach. I'm dry brushing the yellow onto the model, so some of that white will still show through in the deepest recesses. I want to give the impression that the inside of the fire demon is glowing white hot, and as I add more colours in later steps, each one slightly darker than the last, it will look like the heat and fire is cooling slightly as it gets further and further away from that white hot core. As this is a very bright paint, it's going to take a few passes to build up a strong yellow effect, but in 3 or 4 passes it should be a bright yellow colour with just small amounts of white showing. There are some areas that I will be painting over later, like the sword and the horns, but as dry brushing is a very messy process, these areas will get some paint on them, but don't worry because they will be painted over again later. Don't worry about being too heavy with this dry brush. You can treat it almost like an overbrush and apply quite a bit of paint to the model, leaving just a bit of white showing in the deepest and most hard to reach areas. The stronger and brighter you can get the yellow at this stage, the better the fire effect will be. After a few passes you can see I've got a strong yellow with just a bit of white showing in the deepest recesses. Now with Fire Dragon Bright, I'm applying another all over dry brush. This time I'm being slightly lighter with the dry brush. I'm going to make several passes again, building up the colour until I get an effect that I'm happy with. I want to cover a good amount of the model with Fire Dragon Bright, leaving just a bit of yellow showing and the white still showing from the deepest areas. By being slightly lighter with the dry brush, the colour will be deposited onto all the raised and flat surfaces, but leave the yellow and white showing through. I'm also starting with a large brush to cover areas quickly, but at the end I'll come in with a smaller brush to catch any areas I may have missed or areas that the large brush can't reach. And with the Fire Dragon Bright applied, the colour gradient I'm aiming for is starting to show through. Now with Troll Slayer Orange, I'm applying another all over dry brush, but once again being slightly lighter than the previous colour. Troll Slayer Orange is a bit darker than the Fire Dragon Bright and will work really well to aid that transition as I move from the yellow to the red of the fire. Although I'm applying this dry brush all over the model, I'm being very light around the centre of the model and applying a slightly heavier coverage towards the extremities of the arms and legs. This will only make a subtle difference now, but as I come in later with the darker colours, it will really sell the impression of the middle of the demon being the hottest and the fire cooling off as it gets closer to the hands and feet. It will take several passes again to slowly build up the colour with the Troll Slayer Orange, but each pass will build up the colour and really bring out the transition on the model. With the Troll Slayer Orange applied, the fire effect is starting to come together. Now with Evil Sun Scarlet, I'm applying another dry brush to the model. With this dry brush I want to really focus on the arms and legs. I'll gently cover the middle of the mini to keep the colours tied together and so it appears uniform in its style, but I want a lot of this Evil Sun Scarlet to be near the extremities. As I'm now into the red colours, I really want to be careful as I build up the red around the arms and legs, as this is what will really sell the impression that this demon is on fire. I'm making sure I leave some of all the previous colours showing, and the Evil Sun Scarlet is picking out the most raised details and the larger, flatter sections of the model. I'm not afraid to make several passes with the dry brush again, slowly building up the colour until I get it how I want. making sure I'm not too heavy with the brush as I don't want to accidentally paint over the yellow and oranges I've already got on the model. With the Evil Sun Scarlet applied, the fire look is really starting to come through. Now with Mephiston Red, I'm applying another dry brush, really focusing this towards the hands and feet of the model. As this is a base paint and is quite strong, I'm being really careful to not come in too thick or heavy with this paint. I'm just very gently applying this dry brush, so I'm just catching small areas at a time with a little bit of the paint. By focusing this towards the ends of the model's arms and legs, it will make these areas look like they're the coolest part of the model, and the fire has cooled down a bit from the white hot of its core. While focusing on the hands and feet, I'm still gently dry brushing the rest of the model, adding small amounts so the Mephiston Red will tie the whole model together, but the heaviest deposit should be on the hands and feet, with just a light speckling Mephiston Red on his chest where the brighter colours are. With the Mephiston Red applied, there is just one final dry brush to add to the model. And that's with some Abaddon Black. I'm being very gentle with this dry brush and applying it onto the very ends of the fiery spine on his back, just catching the very tips. But also gently sweeping my brush over the rest of the model as well. This black will give the impression of smoke or soot on the model, and really is the finishing touches for this fire effect. Coming in too heavy will make the model look black, which I don't want, so I'm just being very light with my dry brush as I catch just a few details with some Abaddon Black. If you're enjoying the video, please press like. If you want more videos, press the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. And if you'd like to support the channel, please become a member by pressing the join button down below or joining me over on Patreon. And after that final dry brush of black, you can see the fire effect on the model. Now it's time for some details to really make the fire pop. First, with White Scar, I'm carefully sinking this into the eyes of the model. Where these will have been caught with other colours, the eyes will have darkened down a bit, so by painting some White Scar into the eyes, these will look like pools of white hot fire looking out from the model. I'm also painting the teeth with White Scar. This will brighten up the teeth, and much like the eyes, give them a look of being much brighter than the rest of the demon around them. Now the eyes and teeth are painted, all that's left is to paint the sword and the horn details. With Abaddon Black again first, I'm carefully painting all over the sword, as well as the crossguard details, handle and hilt. Painting the sword black will add some contrast to the bright fire of the model, and will really brighten up the model overall and sell the fire effect on the skin. It might take a couple of coats of black to get a solid cover on these areas, but I really don't want any of the white showing through, but just 2 coats should be enough to give solid coverage. I'm also painting the horns, being really careful around the fire effect on the head. I don't want to accidentally paint over any of that with black, but I do want to make sure I get a solid coat of black on these details. Finally, I'm also painting any claws on the hands and feet with some Abaddon Black as well, adding yet more contrast to the model and bringing out these details against the fire. With the black painted, next I'm going to highlight a lot of these areas. And I'm using Thousand Suns Blue for this. I'm highlighting the blade, applying a thin line down the centre of the blade, keeping this line nice and small, as well as straight as it moves down the sword. I'm also highlighting the edge of the sword blade as well. I like to use blue for these highlights as it really adds an otherworldly look to the black, and will also add some more contrast to the fire on the main part of the demon. I'm also catching all the ridges on the handle with Thousand Suns Blue. I'm not catching the crossguard or pommel details as I'll paint these another colour shortly. On the horns, I'm painting a small line on any ridges or marks on the horns. Like the centre of the sword, I'm keeping the lines as small as possible and just tracing any details with some Thousand Suns Blue. Don't worry if the paint seems to be a bit bright, it will dry a lot darker and provide a nice subtle highlight to these details. I'm also catching the tops of the claws on his toes and fingers as well, just adding a small line or spot at the very top. With the Thousand Suns blue applied, there is just one colour left to add to the Fire Daemon. And that's some Retributor armour. What Khorne model would be complete without some gold somewhere? I'm painting this onto the pommel of the sword, making sure to avoid accidentally painting the handle. And I'm applying this onto the detailing on the crossguard as well. This gold is going to break up that black just a bit, give the Khorne look to this demon, and really finish off the look of this Fire Daemon of Khorne. With the gold applied, the Fire Daemon is almost complete. Now with some Reikland Flesh Shade, I'm applying a light shade to the gold. Flesh Shade gives a really nice brassy look to Retributor armour, and will take a bit of the shine off the metallic paint, so the Fire Daemon is still the brightest part of the model. I'm making sure this doesn't pull too heavily, and if I do notice it pooling, I'll wick any excess shade away with a dry brush. After the shade has dried, you can see it's given a reddy look, like it's reflecting fire. Now with Stormhose Silver, I'm applying some small spot highlights to the gold. Any of the sharpest points or angles, I'm just applying a small highlight of Stormhose Silver. I'm using silver instead of gold for this, so it really looks like the metal is gleaming from the Fire Daemon. I don't want to apply too many highlights, just on the sharpest points to finish off the model. And with those highlights complete, that is how to paint a Fire Daemon version of a Khorne Bloodletter. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Fire Daemons? And what kind of demon would you like to see me paint next? Water, ice, blood, or something else? Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And happy painting!